Amara's hands worked hard as she put the last of the flowers on the eating table. The soft light of candles shone on the clean spoons and forks, and the smell of her husband Chidi's best foods filled the air. Tonight was their 5th wedding birthday, a big day she had waited for many months. She stepped back to look at what she had done. Their small town home, often filled with daily noise, had been turned into a cozy place that showed their happiest times. Each thing was picked with love. The old wine they had shared on their first date, the list of songs from their wedding night. It was perfect, a party for their life together. Amara couldn't help but smile as she thought about how they had met. Chidi, smooth and driven, had won her heart with his wit and warm ways. Over the years, she had given all to their marriage, doing her own work while helping his dreams. Their life together wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, built on love and trust, or so she thought. But lately, something had changed. Chidi had been far away, his normal kindness changed by a weird worry. He often said he was busy with work, and while Amara tried to push away her fears, a bad feeling crept into her mind. She had even seen his way around her best friend, Ngozi, seemed off, but she pushed the idea out as just her fears. Ngozi had been in Amara's life for as long as she could think back, bold, full of life, and very loyal, or so Amara thought. Ngozi had always been her friend, the one who could cheer her up with a joke or a quick plan. When Amara had shared her plans for the birthday surprise, Ngozi had pushed her on, though her joy had seemed fake. As Amara fixed a candle, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Ngozi. "Hope tonight's perfect. You earn the best." Amara smiled at the words, though something about it felt empty. Ngozi had been strangely far lately, saying she was busy when Amara wanted to meet up. A noise broke her thoughts. The front door opened and Amara turned, her face bright with hope. But it wasn't Chidi. It was her next-door friend, Mrs. Bello, who smiled with, "Sorry, I thought I saw Chidi's car before," she said. "I was going to say, well done to you both." Amara's stomach jumped with a mix of hope and doubt. She looked at her phone again. No word from Chidi. The night went on, and Amara held to the hope that this was just one more time in their story. She had no clue the night would show lies that would change her world forever. The sun went down, making long shadows through the windows as Amara looked at the clock for the 100th time. The table was set, candles burning softly, but Chidi was not there. Her calls were not answered, and each minute made the bad feeling in her chest worse. Ngozi wasn't answering either, her phone going right to message box. Amara tried to push away the bad thoughts coming to her mind. They are both busy, she told herself, though her heart said otherwise. The perfect birthday surprise was starting to feel like a mean joke. As she walked the room, the doorbell rang, stopping her wild thoughts. Amara opened it to find Mrs. Bello again, her face a mix of doubt and worry. "I don't want to push in," she began, "but I think you should know. I saw Chidi's car parked near Ngozi's flat before. I'm sure it's nothing, but..." The words hit Amara like a punch to the belly. She forced a smile, thanked Mrs. Bello, and closed the door, her mind racing. What was Chidi doing near Ngozi's place? The thoughts stayed, growing worse with each second. She shook her head, trying to push away the doubts. It's just chance. It has to be. Unable to shake the feeling, Amara grabbed her keys and left. The night air felt colder than normal as she drove, her hands gripping the wheel tight. Her heart beat fast as she came to Ngozi's flat. Part of her hoping Mrs. Bello was wrong. She parked far off, not wanting to be seen. As she moved closer, her breath stuck in her throat. Through the half-drawn curtains of Ngozi's living room, she saw Chidi. He was there, laughing, his hand on Ngozi's shoulder in a way that sent cold fear down Amara's back. Ngozi leaned in, her face inches from his. The moment froze in time. Amara's world fell as the truth showed before her eyes. She took a step back, her foot slipping on the ground, making a noise loud enough to catch their eye. Both heads turned toward the window. Amara's heart raced, her body shaking. She wanted to run, to scream, but all she could do was stand there, staring at the two people she trusted most. Amara's world had broken in a single moment. The pain cut her heart, leaving her frozen outside Ngozi's flat. As her mind caught up with her feelings, she knew she had two choices: walk away, quiet, or face the ugly truth head-on. Her body shook, but her feet moved with drive. The door to Ngozi's flat opened just as Amara got there. Ngozi stood there, her bold way falling for a short second before a sly smile crossed her face. Behind her, Chidi showed up, his face white as if all the blood had left it. Amara, Chidi started, his voice weak, reaching out as if to calm her. Amara's hand shot up, stopping him. "Don't you dare," she spit, her voice shaking but full of hate. "Don't you dare try to explain." Ngozi leaned easy against the door frame, her arms crossed. "Well, I guess there's no point in acting anymore," she said with pride, her words full of look down. The nerve in Ngozi's voice lit a fire in Amara's chest. She stepped past Ngozi into the living room, her eyes fixed on Chidi. "How long?" she asked, her voice breaking despite her try to stay strong. "How long has this been going on?" Chidi tried for words, his poor lies falling out like loose threads. "Amara, listen. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was lost. Things between us have been different." "Different?" Amara said again, her voice rising with each sound. "We've been married for 5 years, Chidi. 5 years of love, give, and trust. Was that not enough for you?" Ngozi, not caring about Amara's pain, cut in. "Oh, come on, Amira. You always acted like you were perfect, like your marriage was untouchable. Wake up, it wasn't." Amara turned to Ngozi, her eyes hot with anger. "You were my best friend, Ngozi. I trusted you. I told you my secrets. How could you do this to me?" Ngozi shrugged, her pride growing. "Maybe it's time someone told you the truth. You were too easy to guess, Amara, too blind. And let's face it, you never really earned him." Chidi winced at Ngozi's words, but he didn't stand up for Amara. Instead, he said, "It's not just her fault. Things between us got old, Amara. You were too busy trying to rule everything. I needed something new." "New," Amara said again, her voice filled with shock. "So instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix what was wrong, you chose her, my best friend." Ngozi laughed, the sound hurting Amara's ears. "Face it, Amara, you lost. He chose me. It's not my fault you couldn't keep him wanting you." Amara felt the weight of their words crushing her, but as her tears tried to fall, a new feeling began to rise. She stood up straight, her heart hard. "You know what, Ngozi? You're right. I was blind. It was dumb to think either of you were worth my trust." Her voice grew stronger, cutting through the room like a knife. "But let me make one thing clear. You didn't win, Ngozi. You took the scraps of a man who doesn't even have the guts to say he's a coward." Chidi's face turned red with shame, but Ngozi stayed proud. "Call it what you want, Amara. At least I'm not the one left alone." Amara took a deep breath, letting the weight of their lies sink in fully. "Alone," she said, a bitter smile on her lips. "I'd rather be alone than near people like you. Both of you are sad." She turned to Chidi one last time, her eyes filled with a mix of hurt and done. "You didn't just lie to me, Chidi. You lied to every memory we built together. But here's the thing. I'm done crying over you." Before either could talk back, Amara stormed toward the door. Chidi tried to stop her, grabbing her arm, but she yanked it away with force. "Don't touch me," she hissed, her voice like iron. Ngozi called after her with a mean laugh. "Good luck finding someone who can put up with you, Amara." Amara paused at the door, turning her head just enough to glare at Ngozi. "You can have him, Ngozi. You two earn each other." With that, she walked out, slamming the door behind her. The cool night air hit her face, and for the first time since the bad dream began, she felt a small sense of clear mind. Her heart was broken, yes, but she would not let their lies rule her. As she drove away, the memories of her life with Chidi filled her mind. Their first date, their wedding, the times of joy and love. Each memory felt like a stab, but instead of breaking her, they fired up her will. She earned better. She always had. Amara drove with no plan, the cool night air coming through the car window. Her mind raced, playing back the lies she had just seen. The pain was sharp, but under it, a growing sense of clear mind began to show. She thought of all the times she had given up her joy, ignored her own needs, and fought to keep a love alive while Chidi grew far. She knew, with pain, that this lie was not just a sudden hit, it had been growing for years. Pulling over to the side of a quiet road, Amara took deep, shaky breaths. Her tears had dried, changed by a hot anger that ran through her body. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of power coming back to her. She gripped the wheel tight, her knuckles white, and whispered to herself, "I earn better." Set on not being eaten by grief, Amara chose to go back, not to beg or plead, but to face them one last time, to take back her worth and cut the ties that had held her trapped in their lies. Her face in the car mirror stared back at her, tired but firm. She started the car and turned around. Back at Ngozi's flat, the lights were still on. Amara went in without knocking. Chidi and Ngozi, sitting on the couch, turned toward her in shock. Ngozi's proud look fell for a moment, and Chidi looked very not at ease. "Amara, what are you?" Chidi began, but she cut him off. "Save it," she said, her voice steady but strong. "I came back for one reason, to tell you both just how sad you are." Ngozi leaned back, acting bored. "Oh, here we go. One more big speech." Amara stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Chidi. "Chidi, you had everything. A wife who loved you, a life we built together, and a future that I would have fought for. But you threw it all away for what? A thrill, a fling." Chidi opened his mouth to speak, but Amara's sharp tone stopped him. "No, don't even try to make it right. There's no excuse for what you've done. You didn't just lie to me, you lied to yourself. And for what? Someone who was meant to be my best friend." Amara turned to Ngozi, her eyes thin with anger. "And you? You had the nerve to call yourself my friend. You stood by me, heard me talk about my fears, my dreams, my love for this man. And all the while you were waiting for your chance to ruin it. Why? Because you were green with envy. Because you wanted what I had." Ngozi's smirk came back, though it was less sure now. "You're right, Amara. I did want what you had. And guess what? I got it." Amara laughed with pain. "Nah, Ngozi, you didn't. You got the scraps of a man who didn't even have the guts to be true. Well done. You earn each other." Chidi stood up, his voice full of need. "Amara, please? I made a big wrong, but we can fix this. I love you." Amara shook her head, her voice calm but firm. "You don't love me, Chidi. You love the idea of me. The safe, the rock, the ease. But love isn't ease. Love is trust. And you lost that the moment you chose her." Chidi reached out for her hand, but Amara stepped back. "No," she said firmly. "Don't touch me. You don't get to say sorry now. Not when you've already shown me who you really are." Turning to Ngozi one last time, Amara's voice dropped. each word heavy with "done." You may think you've won, but all you've done is show the truth. You're not worth my pain or my time. I'm done with both of you. Amara walked to the door, pausing only to glance back at Chidi. You didn't just lose me, Chidi. You lost the best thing that ever came to you. She left without another word, her head held high. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter, more free. She felt the weight of the hurt lift with each step she took away from them. The tears she had cried were gone, changed by a quiet strength. She was no longer the woman holding to a broken marriage. She was someone new, someone stronger. As she drove away, the city lights spread around her, and for the first time in years, she felt a flash of hope. She had faced her pain, faced her liars, and walked away with her worth, safe. The road ahead was not sure, but Amara knew one thing for sure. She would never take less than she earned again. The days after the fight were hard, but Amara was set to find her way again. The home she had built with Chidi now felt like an empty shell, filled with memories that were hard to face. Instead of giving in to the grief, Amara made a choice. She would take back her life, piece by piece. She began by reaching out to her family. Her younger sister, Neka, was the first to come, arms open wide, ready to help her. They spent hours talking, Amara pouring out her heart, while Neka heard, giving words of hope and help. "You've always been stronger than you think," Neka told her. "This isn't the end for you, it's a new start." Amara also told her old friend Og, someone she had lost touch with over the years while trying to keep her marriage. Og had always been her rock in hard times, and meeting her again felt like finding a lost part of herself. Over coffee, Oge gently pushed Amara toward focus on her own dreams. "You used to talk about starting your own artwork," Oge said. "Why not now? You're free to do what you want." Taking those words to heart, Amara threw herself into finding again the loves she had put away. She began drawing again, filling pages with art and ideas that had been hidden under years of give and take. The act of making felt healing, as if she were taking back parts of herself that had been lost. She joined a local small jib class, meeting like-minded people who shared her drive and push. Their love was catching, and Amara found herself happy about the future for the first time in years. She also made changes to her home space, starting with the house. Amara packed away things that made her think of Chidi, boxing up photos, small gifts, and anything else that carried the weight of lies. She moved chairs, painted the walls a calm blue, and put fresh flowers in her living room. Each change felt like a sign, like shedding layers of the past and stepping into a new part. Despite her growth, there were times of doubt. Nights were still the worst, when the quiet went long and memories crept in not asked. But Amara learned to take those times, using them as signs of how far she had come. She started writing before bed, filling the pages with thanks for small wins and thoughts on her growth. Her notes became a sign of her toughness. One day, while walking through the park, Amara stopped to watch a group of kids playing. Their joy was catching, and she found herself smiling. It was a small but strong time, a sign that joy could still live even in the wake of heartbreak. Chidi tried to reach out a few times, leaving long, sad words asking for another chance. But Amara didn't answer. Each time she heard his voice, she felt a growing sure that she had made the right choice. His begging no longer had power over her. They were just sounds of a life she had left behind. As for Ngozi, she stayed not sorry, now and then trying to make Amara mad with proud posts online. But Amara would not take part. She saw that Ngozi's hate was her load to bear, not Amara's. Instead of staying on Ngozi's lies, Amara focused on building a life that was no longer set by those who had hurt her. With time, Amara's work began to bear fruit. Her artwork gained speed, drawing folks who liked her own eye. She made new friends, put herself with people who lifted and helped her. She even started going to new places, something she had always dreamed of, but had put off during her marriage. Each trip felt like a step toward taking back her free life. Through it all, Amara learned that healing wasn't straight. It was messy, with falls and jumps in equal share. But every day, she grew a little stronger, a little braver, and a little more sure in her skill to make a full life on her own terms. Amara's path wasn't just about moving on from lies. It was about finding herself again. And in doing so, she found a strength she never knew she had, a strength that would carry her on into a future filled with hope. Months had passed, and Amara's life had changed in ways she could never have thought of. The pain of lies still stayed, but it no longer set her path. Instead, it served as a sign of her tough will and the strength she had found in herself. The first step in finding peace came when Amara filed for a split. Walking into the lawman's office had been scary, but each sign she put to the papers felt like a weight lifting off her back. She knew this was the right choice. The marriage she once loved was no longer a safe place, but a sign of broken trust. By ending it, she was picking herself, her joy, her future. When the split was done, Chidi asked for one last meet. Amara agreed, not out of hope, but because she knew she needed to close this part on her terms. They met in a quiet shop, a fairground. Chidi's face showed sad, his once sure way changed by fear. "Amara," he began, his voice shake. "I don't know how to say how sorry I am. I made a bad wrong, and I know I hurt you in ways I can never fix. I'll feel bad for it for the rest of my life." Amara heard quiet, her heart steady. She looked at him, not with rage, but with a calm take. "Chidi," she said back, her tone firm but soft. "I don't hate you, but forgiving doesn't mean no memory, and it doesn't mean going back. What you did broke something in me, in us, that can't be fixed. I've moved on, and I hope you find a way to do the same." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'll always love you," he said soft. Amara smiled small, a mix of sad and done in her look. "I loved you too, but love isn't always enough." "Hi, Chidi." That talk was the peace Amara needed. Walking out of the shop, she felt a sense of calm. She had said her piece, and now it was time to fully take the life ahead of her. Her tie with Ngozi, though, ended with no such meet. Amara cut her off on all sides, erasing any link. Ngozi's lies had cut too deep, and there was no place for her in Amara's future. Some bridges, Amara saw, were better left burned. Amara began deep dive in her new world. She went to town meets, got back with old friends, and joined a local women's power group. The friend ties and same life tales told her that she wasn't alone. Each new tie became a brick in the base of her new life. One night, as the sun set over the town, Amara stood on the small porch of her flat, looking over the skyline. She held a glass of wine, thinking on the past and the path that had brought her here. For the first time in years, she felt a deep sense of peace. The story ended not with a big love or a wild twist, but with Amara finding strength in herself. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, filled with self-love, hope, and the start of new times. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please join our African Folktales group.